And here we go. Digital Adel back with another Hoops Profile Beyond the Backboard podcast for you with my co-host, Matt Hanifan. How are you doing today, Matt?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. The NBA is nearly a month underway. You know how time flies, man. College basketball season's a couple weeks underway. I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Oh, I am doing outstanding, man. Thanks for asking. Just super busy time of the year, as you mentioned. The NBA is in full swing. College basketball is back. Even though I have people in my mentions like, how could you dare break down a prospect versus Mississippi Valley State? Because I'm a sicko. That's why. But yeah, no, I'm doing awesome, man. I really appreciate you stopping by. I'm really excited to do this as a live stream, something that we're going to start doing more often. The podcast has been doing great. Breakdowns have been doing great. You can find me anywhere on social media under Digital Adel. That includes In the Sky. You can find me on Hoops Profile on YouTube. That's our channel for all the breakdowns. And of course, this podcast, if you're listening. And you can listen to the podcast, not just on YouTube, but anywhere podcasts are found. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Samsung Podcasts, and many, many more. Where can people find you, follow you, and get more of your work, Matt?
At NPH_824_. That is where you're gonna find me on Twitter. I wish I could talk.
Would be helpful.
Yes. At NPH_824_. I know that's like, the Pythagorean theorem or whatever we say is to joke around with how complicated that handle is. You could also find me at hoops.com. VendettaSportsMedia.com and MountainWestConnection.com, where I will be doing at some point breaking down some of the Mountain West prospects, the couple that will actually be out of the conference in the 2025 cycle, potentially. So yeah, those are the few spots where you can find me, in addition to watchplayback.tv/5RSN, where you could find Adel and I, plus others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network, watching Heat games, talking about Heat games, no matter how sad or mad or happy they make us. So yeah, man, I'm everywhere.
Absolutely, that Nevada bias comes along with you anywhere he goes. And if you mention Donovan Dent's name, he also appears.
Donovan Dent, Neat Clifford, two guys from the Mountain West.
Two guys.
I'll make you talk about whether you want to or not, whether you like to or not. I'm going to make you talk about them at some point over the next.
Listen, anybody that's a friend of Isaiah Stevens is a friend of mine.
I'm not going to say they're actually. Well,
Neat Clifford, man, yeah.
I was going to say they're former teammates, so maybe. But that's neither here nor there.
Absolutely. Well, I can't wait to get into this New York Knicks draft, because their draft night was absolutely wild, man. I don't know if people really paid attention to how many trades they made on draft night. Like, they drafted Pacome, 6'9", 217 pounds, played in Europe, from France, the French Revolution of basketball. Pacome was, a really versatile player, really good scorer. And I actually watched probably like 7 to 10 games of his in Europe. So I was very familiar with him. But on draft night, the Knicks started going trade crazy, man. They acquired Tyler Kolek. They, drafted McCullers from Kansas. And then they snagged Ariel Porte from Germany, the center, 7 foot, 246. And a big shout out to my guy, Saucy Takes on Twitter, Coach Lou. He's the one that tipped me off to him, because, I'm a one-man band, so to speak. So I was so busy, I didn't even really get a chance to scout him. I saw him on lists and whatnot, but I never got a chance to scout him until he brought him to my attention. And then I went and watched a couple of games and a few games, and I could see the vision. So we're going to talk about him as well. So I can't wait to get into this draft, talk about these players. I know that you've watched several games on Pacome since Summer League and forward. Talk to me about Pacome for a little bit.
It was very interesting. Like summer league specifically, the game that I remember watching like most pertinently was the game against Charlotte. Um, and the thing that was just immediately stood out to me was he was guarding Brandon Miller. And like Brandon, Brandon Miller is one of those guys who was playing in summer league, like despite being a second-year player, despite being one of the NBA's top rookies last year, but just like the Heat with Jaime Jaquez, just like a couple years ago with Keegan Murray in Sacramento, just like some of these guys who were like these second-year wings, who are still continuing to get reps, and like you definitely saw some flashes on the defensive end from him. His shot wasn't falling, and that was something that like internationally, like that was something that he was known for, was his 3-and-D pop, his 3-and-D potential. You did see some of the defensive flashes that he had, but the shot wasn't falling. But then again, like you look at what he's doing now with the Knicks, like he's actually getting some run throughout this early portion of the season, like just like spot minutes here and there. And he's knocking down 46% of his threes, so I'm not like necessarily worried about that. And like when you watched him shoot, like it looked fluid. The mechanics looked fine. Like it was just a matter of it not going in consistently. Right. And so I wasn't worried about that. There was some also like in addition to the 3-and-D stuff, like there was some playmaking chops. Like I want to see him develop his game off the dribble a little bit more. But again, he's 18, 19 years old. Like he's still an incredibly young player. So there's definitely some flashes to his game, and like it was interesting to me. Like the Knicks did have 3 or 4 picks, but it was interesting to me like that they went with the guy who is still kind of raw to some extent, and there's still a lot of growth to be had for a team that was one of the best teams in the East last season, and a team that's looking to contend for an NBA title. But this is like a good dart throw in my opinion. And again, like I don't know how much run he's going to get year one. Like I don't know as the year goes on and injuries and stuff, and the rotation will figure itself out. Like I don't know how much run he's going to get, so I'm expecting him to be in Westchester a little bit just to get some of those additional reps. But from everything that I've seen so far, I've liked what I've seen.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the one thing about Pacome, whenever I was scouting him, watching him play in Europe, was that he was an excellent offensive player in terms of feel. Like he had an excellent feel for the game, and he never was. 100%. He was never overwhelmed by the moment, defensive pressure. A game that really stuck out in my mind in Europe when he was playing against the number 1 pick, Zachary Richeche, he was just carving him up. And it wasn't just like off the dribble, because again, his off the dribble game isn't his strong suit, but it was in the half court. He was setting him up on like he was going up top, cutting back door. His cuts are very timely, and that's a feel and a basketball IQ thing. And so he had a very high offensive basketball IQ. He was active defensively. He tried, but he just wasn't mature enough or seasoned enough to really put it into practice. And he also needs to get a little bit quicker with his feet on defense. And again, that's going to come with time. He can do that. When he was in Europe, he was just an offensive machine for being 18 years old at 6'9", 217. In Europe, he was averaging 15.5 points per game, 5.5 rebounds per game, and then 1.4 assists. So it shows you his activity level and his basketball IQ to play against grown men and have that type of production and scoring prowess. So I was really high on him coming out. On my big board, whenever you go and look back, which you can, I post my big board on Fanspo. You go back and look, I had him as the 23rd best player in this draft. He was drafted 25th overall. If you go back and you look at a lot of sites, you're not going to find that type of prognostication on him because he was so raw. But the league knew, and the league tells you what they think of players. It's very similar to how Bilal Coulibaly, whenever I first found him like 2 months before the mainstream media, I had him going in the first round, going in the, in the top 10, top 20. And then suddenly on draft night, he was the 7th or 6th overall pick. These scouts really put in the work, and they can really find these guys. And Pacome was one of those. So I think it was a great pick for the New York Knicks that they got. With that in mind, they also have another excellent pick, in my opinion. Jalen Brunson, dynamite left-handed point guard. And they were like, you know what? We like these left-handed point guards. So they snatched another one. Number 34 overall, and Tyler Kolek. What are your thoughts on one Tyler Kolek?
Kolek was a player that I watched extensively. Like we talked about Pacome and Hukporti. We haven't talked about Hukporti yet, but he was another guy that I didn't watch a whole lot of coming out of like international. My first introduction to him and Pacome were in summer league. But Kolek was someone that I watched extensively when he was at Marquette this last year, really the last couple of years. And he was a lot of fun to watch just because of his passing ability and his playmaking ability. Like I thought he was one of, if not the best passers in the entire country.
Right.
And that's something he, showed a lot of during the summer league. I want to say I saw a stat. I can't remember who, so I beg your pardon, but I think he was like the only player in NBA history to report at least 35 assists or something like that with less than 8 turnovers.
That's an outstanding stat.
In summer league. Like it was like some crazy stat like that. Again, I don't know how true or untrue that is. I'm imagining it's true, but at the same time, like it was a remarkable statistic. And he was someone like, I know he hasn't really found his shot in his NBA minutes, in his very limited NBA minutes. I know he hasn't really found his shot in like he didn't really find it in summer league, but he was someone like again, the form and the touch that he had when he was in college, like I know he is like a smaller player, but I don't know why I just trust it. Like I think it'll come around to some extent.
Right.
Because to me, like he was not always, but like there were times during his college career where he was a tough shot taker, but he was also a tough shot maker. Again, when you're going up against NBA level athletes with NBA length and like that size and whatnot, like it may not come around, but what will come around is his playmaking, even though like he may need that shot to come around at some point to be a functional NBA player just because of, you want to leverage your shooting and your playmaking and vice versa. Like that's something that you want to have because you don't want teams to play off you or teams to duck under screens or whatnot and take away pick and rolls and take away those advantages or coverages if you're not a shooter. And I think he can be someone who, if he finds his shot and he finds his touch, like over obviously an extended sample, that's something that they could really use as like a backup point guard behind Brunson. Because like obviously, yeah, the campaign, like I know he's just a veteran leader and he's a guy that Tom Thibodeau trusts, but Kolek is ultimately the guy that you're going to trust taking those backup point guard minutes at some point. In addition to what they have with Deuce McBride. So he was someone that I liked defensively. Like he was a solid player in college, or at least he was a guy who was competitive and tried defensively. Again, I don't know how much that's going to hold up at the NBA level when he's being hunted because he's 6'2" and doesn't have like the greatest frame in the entire world. But when you play under Shaka Smart, like I trust there's some like competitiveness there, and that was something that he showed a lot of, was just his competitive maturity and his competitive disposition when he was at Marquette. And there was a reason why he was relied upon so much in that offense when he was there, both with what he could do offensively and even defensively. And so he was someone who I liked a lot, and someone who I'm looking to see, like someone who I think could have like a solid future in the NBA. If a couple of things come around and become a little bit more consistent at that level.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You raise a lot of good points. I really like Tyler Kolek, man. I was scouting him and Cam Jones a lot at Marquette. I was super shocked, one, that Cam Jones went back to school. But two, Tyler Kolek is one of those guys who's ultra competitive. I'm not worried about his competitiveness. He's never going to be a plus defender where he's going to be point of attack guy and take on your best ball handler and penetrator. But he's going to be a good team guy. And he can be very much like Stephen Curry on defense, where he just isn't a minus anymore. He's just a good team, solid defender. That's where he can get to with that frame, with his height, with his size. That's what you got to expect out of him. Good position defense. You're never going to get a lot of, like I said, point of attack stops. But as a team, if he plays and buys into that system, that's what you're going to get. Now, back to shooting. You brought up something very important with Tyler Kolek's shooting. At Marquette, when I scouted him out of college, one of the things that I noticed was that his standstill catch and shoot jumper, money, 40 some odd %. great standstill catch and shoot jumper. Where he got into trouble was shooting on the move. And the reason for that is he had a very elongated motion. People know on this channel, I talk all the time about eliminating the dip out of your shot. Some people are okay with the dip. Some people aren't. I'm a big believer in getting it out of your shot, especially because his time from when he catches the ball to when he released his shot, it takes forever. And so if one of the things you watch coming out of college and then in the summer league is that they really sped up his motion. They really shortened it up. So now it's actually a lot quicker release. And so it's just going to take time for him to get comfortable with that sped up release. I ultimately believe in his jump shot. His jump shot's going to be perfectly fine in my opinion. So I think that's going to come around. Now his playmaking is where it's at. It's bar none his best trait is his playmaking ability, his ability to read coverages on the pick and roll. One of the great things about point guards and playmakers, they're not looking at their primary defender. Never. That's not something they're paying attention to. They can get to their spots, get to wherever they want to get to. What they're looking at is the defensive coverage and where the weak side help is coming from, or the strong side help, because basketball is a simple game if you let it, right? You have a knockdown shooter in the corner, and you're driving off a pick and roll on the right-hand side to that same corner. You're either getting to the basket because the help's not coming off, or if the help comes off, you're reading that and kicking, right? Simple. So things like that. That's the things that you're reading as a playmaking point guard. I know a guy in the Sioux Falls G League that does that a lot, but we're not going to talk about him. We're talking about.
I didn't want to say it, but like he did. He was a guy who made like multiple reads, Kolek, and I was going to compare him to Isaiah Stevens. I didn't want to.
But you can't help it, man. You just can't help it.
We can't help it. I can't help it. You and I can't. We can't help it.
I cannot. Isaiah Stevens is a legit elite playmaking point guard. Now, he may be very small, but he's an excellent playmaking point guard. And so is Tyler Kolek. So that's why we bring this full circle. Tyler Kolek, just like Isaiah Stevens, can make multiple reads, and he will run your offense, and he will make the right decision play after play after play. Now, also, the thing about Tyler Kolek that I really like is he can finish in the paint going with his left hand over almost anybody. And it's a skill and an art to do that. I want to point to a couple of clips that I put out into the YouTube space for my channel members, as well as on Twitter. Tyler Kolek scoring over a dinosaur named Zach Edey, who is 7'4" with a 7'11" wingspan. When Marquette played Purdue, he scored several times directly over Edey. He's only 6'2". That is a skill set. Very reminiscent of Goran Dragic in that way. Puts that right shoulder on you, floats it up over the top before you can get to it. Excellent score. So I actually really like him. I think his trajectory isn't going to be measured in this year or even maybe the next year, but I think over the span of his career, he's going to be a steal for the New York Knicks. They had other picks because they were draft crazy, trade crazy. They have more picks. They also picked from Kansas, number 56 overall, Kevin McCullough. I scouted him too. And he's also a lefty. I don't know what it is, man. Isn't he?
Is he?
I think he is. Is he a righty? I don't know. He can finish with his left, though.
Huck Porty was the left.
Huck Porty, that's right. I got him mixed up. Huck Porty's the lefty. But anyway, I digress. They picked him up. I am not so high on Kevin McCullough. I actually thought he was an undrafted player, in my opinion. There's some guys that I would have picked over him. He's one of those guys that even though he's 6'6", he's not really a playmaking point guard. And he's not really that great of a scoring guard either. He was a great scoring guard for college, but for the NBA, I don't think his skill set's really going to translate like that. Like if we look at Kevin McCullough, I'm going to read this profile to you from Tankathon that they had on Kevin McCullough. his negatives. I just want to read the negatives. And you let me know what you think is going to be, where he would go in a draft. Draft age is against him. He's 20. He was like almost 24 on draft night. So draft age is against him. 3-point shooting percentage was a minus against him. Turnovers, offensive rebounds, offensive win shares, and wingspan ratio. For a guy that's 6'6", supposedly is a scoring guard, those cannot be your weaknesses. I know you didn't watch much of him, but do you have any thoughts on just that specifically?
I watched a little bit of him when he was in Kansas. Unfortunately, he wasn't a player who, I think was it a knee injury?
Yes.
That's been holding him back?
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, so he really didn't, I don't think he got any summer league run, nor has he gotten run at all yet for the Knicks, at least to my knowledge. I could be very wrong. But I think the thing that I liked about him that I'm not like completely disagree with you, but to some extent, like, I am worried about the shooting. The shooting to me, he felt like very high release, sometimes inconsistent release. At least at the top of his motion, like that was something that was concerning to me coming out. The thing that I did like about him defensively, like even though he had that deficiency in addition to the wingspan, this, that, and the other, was I thought he was like a smart off-ball player.
Right.
And then I also thought he was I don't know if he would consider him a great defender, but I thought he was like a smart, heady defender when he was at Kansas.
That's because he was 10 million years old.
Right. But at least when you're adding him into that kind of context, for one, I'm curious because again, there's just a pecking order of players that he has to pass, especially since he's hurt.
Right.
And then two, how does that specific skill set fit in? And that team is winning it, or at least not winning a title. I was going to say what they're going to win a title. No, they're competing for a title.
Competing. So, there you go.
Yeah, I'm fascinated about it in that skill set. Wasn't the most efficient shooter. He shot 33% from three his last year at Kansas, 31% for his career. He was an okay free throw shooter. He was around 75% for most of his career.
80%.
Well, the 80% last year, but I'm just career.
For his career.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
75, 76%. And again, I just like some of the stuff that he can do, defensively, competitively, his feel off the ball. Those were just things that to some extent stuck out to me as okay, I can take. He was a guy that I have as an early second round, mid second round player. Just off the top of my head from at the time. But he was a guy who I thought could have made an impact. Again, he's hurt, so I don't know how much that's going to affect things. I wonder how much he's going to be in the G League when he is healthy. If he is healthy this year, I don't know the status of that. So hopefully he's able to get back soon. But I am curious about some of those things, how he fits into that context, being that old of a player. Even though they're competing to win a title and you want guys who produce right away, but I don't know what his role is going to be right away because he is hurt, because he is, as you mentioned, 24 years old. I don't there's definitely question marks there, but he was someone who I think I was higher on than you, but I do see some of the concerns that you have for sure.
No, absolutely. And so here's the thing that I have in regards to that is that he turned the ball over a lot in college. This is at the college level. And when we talk about off-ball stuff, what do you got to be able to do to be successful off-ball in today's NBA? You got to be able to hit the three ball. If you're shooting 33% from three, yikes, man. That's on 4.5 attempts per game. If you look at his advanced stats, he had a usage rate of 28%. Imagine in the NBA, that's going to go down. So he's going to have to be even more efficient on limited usage. I don't see that translating. See what I mean? But I get what you're saying. I mean, it's possible it could work out. I mean, he does have some tools that he could use defensively. He's got a little bit of knowledge from playing forever in college. Could it work out? Maybe. I'm a skeptic on that. But there is a guy that I believe that could be another steal for them, and that is Ariel Hochporty. Played over in he's from Germany, played in Melbourne. He's from Stralsund, Germany. 7 foot, 246 pounds, and he can rebound the basketball, plays with excellent angles. That's the key, man. I don't think people realize how much of an art it is to rebound using angles, because he's not as explosive as he used to be. He had an Achilles injury, and that's why he isn't super explosive. But he's just a really smart, heady basketball player, only 22 years old. His per 36 minutes were 14.4 rebounds per 36. He can rebound the heck out of the basketball. And that's on positioning, savvy, and toughness. He's super tough. He's excellent at finding angles to get those jump hooks off in the paint. He was averaging like 56% from the field or something like that. But he doesn't really give you a lot of shot blocking, although he did do that positionally. He's more of a positional defender. He uses that 7'2" wingspan and his height to his advantage. So I do think he's going to be a player that they can get a lot out of for his draft position. The New York Knicks, just a reminder, this will go out as a video. So if you missed the beginning, you'll be able to go back and watch everything from the beginning. It'll also be up on Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, anywhere podcasts are found. You'll be able to download it, listen to while you're on your commute. While you're at the gym working out, you'll be able to listen. So, just keep that in mind. You'll be able to watch the whole thing over if you just came in and joined us late. But where did you leave off with me, Matt? I was pretty much done wrapping up with my thoughts on Ariel Hochporty.
It sounded like you were about ready to. You were almost done with your analysis. I don't know why. Listen, man, I don't know if they heard us talking down on Kevin McCullough. I don't know what happened, but they just randomly booted me from the stream. So
Tom Thibodeau pulled the plug himself. It was Tom Thibodeau.
I was high on him, Tom, or at least higher on him than it did.
Hold on, wait a minute.
You have to kick me, man.
This brings me to a segment I wanted to do that we brought up on Playback the other day, and that's the all-antacid team. The coaches in the league that look like they always need an antacid. And Tom Thibodeau is high on that list.
Yep.
Maybe that's why he pulled the plug, because we said he's on the all-antacid team.
He's like, I have to find this Adel guy and make sure all his current and future streams are ruined.
That's right. I'm in ruin. But what are your thoughts on Ariel Hochporty?
I mean, he was someone who, you said he didn't have, the thing that stuck out to me, at least watching him, or at least really through this early portion of the season and preseason, a little bit in summer, was something that I liked about him was his shot blocking ability, at least positional.
Right.
I think he has good length, broad shoulders. To me, he had good timing on his block attempts as well. Again, there wasn't much that he was going to give you in terms of a rim runner, but you talk about angles, something that he was good at was the angles of his screens. And to me, I thought he set really good screens when he was during summer. And this early portion, that was something that was one of his strong suits, and that allowed him to have those 2-on-1 advantages with the ball handler, running to the rim. And that's something to me that stuck out. Again, not going to add much shooting for you. He's not going to be jacking threes. I don't think he attempted a three during the summer. But he was just kind of like that rim running. Probably not going to add much vertical spacing, but he can definitely do it. Shot blocking, he can be a drop defender. Those were just things that stuck out to me. And so and he's also been getting minutes, throughout this early portion of the season because, Mitch Robb is out. Precious has been out with an injury. Obviously Isaiah Hartenstein's now in Oklahoma City. And so they've needed to fill those center minutes like they filled it with Jericho Sims. Hochporty's been a guy who's been coming off the bench and giving him some productive minutes, some spot minutes. that I didn't think many people expected was going to happen, 3, 4 months ago. So like he's been given his role, like I think he's been like a pretty solid player, and like he's someone that like again I don't know what his ceiling is specifically, but I think he'd carve out rotational role at some point in the NBA once everyone's healthy, and he was just someone that I was like, okay, like I think there's something to some extent. I think there's something here with this.
No, absolutely, man. I agree with you. I think there's definitely something here with this. I think he can carve out a nice role in the NBA. I think he could be a player that's going to be useful for you. He may not be a starter per se ever in his career, but he's going to be a solid backup that's going to help you win basketball games. And I think he's going to be a nice leader and a nice locker room guy as well that, you can have your other talented bigs learn from. We do have Joel from our Discord chat over at 5RSN, and he said, what other NBA player does Pacome comp to that's established? Who does Pacome comp to? So that's a great question.
I'm so bad with comparisons.
I don't think he has a comp, to be honest with you.
You don't think he has a comp?
No, I don't think he has a comp. There's a lot of players
who
don't.
Like current skill set or future skill set? Like what do you see him molding into, or like what do you see him at as just right now?
That's a great question.
Those are two separate questions.
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say this. Because he right now is a purely offensive player, it's very difficult because he's so young. Like he can finish at the lane. He's competitive, but not ultra competitive. He has a nice looking shot. Sometimes he can get his own shot. Sometimes he can't. There's not really a comp for him like that. He doesn't really have a set archetype in that regard.
The first person that came, you want to know who the first person that came to mind was?
I'm dying to hear it.
Cam Johnson.
Oh, Cam Johnson. That's a good one, except for Cam has a better handle. I get
Correct.
that. I get
Correct.
that.
He does.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. I can see some parallels to Cam Johnson's game.
I just the shot.
The other thing is, Pacome is a better off-ball player. Like he's a good cutter as well. Like that's the thing.
True.
Yeah. But I guess we could do that. Cam Johnson's jump shot. Pacome and Cam Johnson.
That was just the first thing that I thought of because I was like, I'm so bad with NBA comparisons because I don't want to say I'm not a believer in NBA comparisons, but I think to some extent every player is their own player.
Right. Who does he look like? Michael Jordan.
Yeah. Larry Bird.
Larry Bird. That's right.
Larry Bird, 86.
That's right.
But no, I would say Cam Johnson's just the first one that comes to mind. I do think that Pacome will be a better defender. Not that Cam's bad, but
right.
So I think Cam's fine, like positionally, as like a team defender. But I do think he will be the better, or at least could be the better overall defender. If you're just comparing him to Cam Johnson, but that was my first. Do you have like one that like initially that pops off?
There literally isn't a person that pops into my head. Literally, not one. This is why I say I'm not a big believer in comparisons, player comparisons.
That's me.
So there are a few, right? Like when I say Pelle Larsson, for example, for the Miami Heat, he reminds me a lot of Dan Marley. Like if you will go back and watch Dan Marley play, him and Pelle Larsson, their games are very similar.
Mm.
It's very hard. There's very few NBA players that are like that. Like this guy is almost just like this guy. Kobe, for example, was very much just like Michael Jordan. That was an easy thing to see. But that's like one player out of a million. Like it's very difficult to do NBA comparisons. I like what Greg Sylvander of the 5 Reasons Sports Network says, though. He says are there shades of a player in their game? So I do like that a little bit. But I don't even have any. Outside of Cam Johnson, I can't think of anybody else.
Yeah, like when I know the ringer when Kevin O'Connor was there. I know he's at Yahoo now. Shout out Kevin. He did like when he would do his like draft. He would do like his draft big board and whatnot, and they would have like all like the comparisons and everything. Like there was a lot of like shades of such and such.
Right. So I do like that. That is something that I like. Real quick to wrap up, Ariel Hakporti. On my big board, I had him 56, number 56 on my big board. You can check this out. I'm going to put the link so people believe me, but they don't think I'm just making this stuff up.
Yeah, he had a Visa Shape 1.
That's right. That's right.
I'm scared. You just had it 1 through. You had Kalel Ware 15. No, I'm just kidding.
Kalel Ware. Let's not talk about him.
Where was the underbird?
There is going to be a podcast on the 5 Reasons Sports Network coming about that. You may hear me talk about it sometime really soon. But I had him 56th on my big board. 56.
Oh, wait, you're talking about Hakporti?
Hakporti, I had him 56. I thought you were going to say
Kalel Ware was 56.
Oh, Kalel.
Like, whoa! It's fitting right into the agenda.
No. But I had him 56. Kevin McCullough went 56, and Hakporti went 58. So I was very, very close. I was very, very close to what the NBA thought. Where did I have McCullough? I think I had him in the 40s, actually. 45th. No, 45th. I had him 45th. And I'll be honest, that he was 45th purely because what I thought other teams were going to think of him. Like, I really didn't like him that much. But, we all have our misses. I had Ryan Dunn 47th on my board because his offense was non-existent in college. And he surprised us all. He surprised us all.
Shame on you for not having noted sharpshooter, sniper.
College sniper Ryan Dunn. That's right. College sniper. But yeah, 50,
man. What? 51% or 55% free throw shooter, 26% 3-point shooter Ryan Dunn.
Wild.
How dare you, Adel? How dare you?
You know what's wild about that, though? It's actually have come back. Water always reaches its level, man. He's down to 32% on the season from 3. So maybe it wasn't such a misevaluation.
He's taking them, though. He's still taking them.
You know what's really impressed me is the confidence to shoot it and his handle. His handle wasn't nearly this good in college. Like, he's really put in the work in 2 months. And this is why I say this to everybody. Ben Simmons will never be considered by me as an elite player for his career, ever. Why? Because he's the same player from college to the NBA. He's never changed any of his skill set, never added to his game. He's the exact same player. Ben Simmons shoots 33% anywhere outside of 3 feet of the basket. If you look at the advanced stats, anywhere from 3 feet and beyond, the highest percentage he shoots is 33%. That is egregious behavior out of Ben Simmons. Egregious. Your thoughts?
I can't counter that. I mean, I don't think anyone's going to consider him a great basketball player at this point of his career. At this point,
not even at this point. I'm talking about at the height of his career, in his prime.
Oh well, yeah. I mean, yeah. Maybe I've always liked Ben, or at least at the height of his career, I liked Ben defensively.
Defensively, yes, but you can't be considered an elite max level player if you can't do anything on the other end of the freaking offense. I mean, he can pass the ball, sure.
I was going to say passing was the...
Yeah, he can pass the ball. That's his best skill set on the offensive side of the floor. But good Lord, man, you can't make layups?
Yeah, it's not great. His summer league tape was sick, though.
His summer league tape was sick. Oh, man. We got another question that rolled in here from the chat. And it is, does Hakporti do anything better than Kel'el Ware or have an upside in any one category than Ware? I'm not going to talk about Kel'el Ware because I'm going to save that for the 5 Reasons Sports podcast that I'm doing right after this show. But I'll say this, Hakporti is not even on the same planet as Kel'el Ware talent-wise. Not even on the same planet. However, on the IQ side of things, he's much further advanced than most young bigs coming out of the draft. He's a very cerebral big, plays angles really well, super intuitive. So that's my overall take on Ariel Hakporti. Before I get out of here today, before we close the show, because we've been going 40 minutes strong, on this episode. Is there anything around the league that happened this week that you want to talk about in the NBA as far as other rookies go?
I mean, fresh off the mind, Dalton Connect just going.
Woo!
He was killing it.
Dalton Connect, man. He was an absolute flamethrower.
He's on fire!
It's going to be hard for him not to be. I think maybe I'm wrong. Didn't they just put him in the starting lineup?
I'll be honest with you. I have not paid attention to the Los Angeles Lakers rotations because Bronny James is only playing home games in the G League.
I didn't want to mention that. But since now we're on the topic, does that benefit anyone? Like a single individual?
Not anyone.
Who does that benefit?
Doesn't benefit Bronny. It doesn't benefit anybody.
It doesn't benefit his PR. Like it doesn't benefit not a single individual.
None of the players that had to go undrafted because Bronny had to be picked. It doesn't benefit anybody. But Dalton Connect is outstanding. And we talked about this going into the draft, man. We talked about this on the podcast, the Lakers episode. Dalton Connect is a certified bucket getter. And he is a vertical athlete. Like he's got springs. He'll dunk on your head. Now, he's not so much a lateral athlete. He's not going to give you a ton defensively. He's not going to really take people off the dribble, but in the half court out of triple threat, working the PNR, he can definitely do that. And man, can he shoot the ball. And he's finding his range. He's finding his range now.
So I'm looking at it right now. I'm looking at his game log. They did put him in the starting lineup. I just wanted to
Let's go.
Crazy. He's been starting the last 3 games. Over his last 4 games, he's played at least 26 minutes, including at least 31 minutes in 3 of those, including last night. His averages are he's averaging 24.3 points, 4.3 rebounds on 67% shooting from the floor, 67% from three-point range, and 85.7% from the free throw line over that 4-game sample. So I get it. It's a 4-game sample, but if you're shooting 67.7% from 3 on 8 attempts, yes, that is including last night when he shot 9 of 12 and he had 37 points. He hit like a gazillion threes in the third quarter. Like he was on an absolute heater, and he was a guy that, like, again in college, like he was a heat check guy. Like as soon as he got hot, he'd get hot in bunches and he'd get hot in stretches, and he was just like, to some extent, again, like a 3 level, 2.5 level, whatever you want to call it, scorer. Like, yeah, he wasn't always going to get to the rim and he wasn't always going to dunk on your head, but he was capable of it for sure. But last night, like, again, when he gets hot from deep, when he's in that zone, it's going to be hard to stop.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what I really wanted to check was what his usage rate has been this year, and it's only been like 17%. So the fact that he's in the starting lineup and he's going to start getting more usage, wow, dude. Watch out. Yeah. Watch the freak out, man. I still have Steph Castle as my rookie of the year. We'll talk about him later in the upcoming episodes for a variety of different reasons. But Dalton Connect could be right there with him, especially if he's going to get that. So could Jared McCain.
Potentially, so can Edie. Like, there's a lot of guys who I think are vying for that. Risa Shea has been playing better lately. Like,
Risa Shea has been playing better. Absolutely. We've talked about him. Bub Carrington's played a ton for the Washington Wizards, and the Washington Wizards are more. We'll talk about him as well when we get to their draft picks. But man, this is the worst draft class ever, though, according to all the talking heads on the 4-letter network. Worst draft class ever, though.
Hey, man, my rookie ain't playing that much. Chloe, we ain't playing that much. That means it is the worst draft class ever. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, no, this draft class, like, I think people are now realizing, at least the middle of it, pretty good, pretty solid.
Pretty good.
Pretty good.
That's right, Larry David.
People just look at the top 5 guys and are like, yep, it's bad. It was a flat draft, sure, but like Klingon's been like, we didn't even mention him, like
freaking mountain
where he had like 20, or I'm exaggerating when I say this, but like 20 blocks. Like I want to say it was actually like 8 blocks or whatever. But the fact that he almost got a triple double with blocks within his first like 10, 15 games. It's nuts.
Nobody's doing it with blocks. Anyway, well, let's not bring up Hassan Whiteside. Real quick, so I want to talk about a couple of things. So I want to go over the answer to the poll questions we put in the chat today. So shout out to everybody in the chat. Awesome draft for the New York Knicks, yes or no? 100% of the vote, yes. We had Tom Thibodeau. Let me end this poll so I can see the results. All antacid team, yes or no? 66% of the vote said yes. He should be on the all antacid team. He looks like he's chewing on an antacid or needs an antacid. He's definitely going on there according to the chat. It's not me. It's the chat. Tom Thibodeau. I want to give a big shout out to our recent subscribers. Bubby Willis, really appreciate you. Definitely appreciate the subscribe. We're trying to grow this channel, man. The podcast, the NBA breakdowns. Really appreciate all the support. You can become a channel member. It's just $2.99. I eliminated all the other channel member tiers. You get access to our videos and podcasts as soon as they come out. Cool badges and emotes. 10% discount on merch. There's some cool shirts, hats, and stuff like that. If you want to support us so we can keep doing this sort of thing. Big shout out to Chino, Kendall Fleming. Really appreciate your subscribes. So don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button to get notified for whenever we go live. Matt, wrap it up. Where can people find you, follow you, and get more of your work?
I just messed up my own Twitter handle. At NPH_824_ is where you can find me on Twitter. That's the second time today where I botched my Twitter at. Maybe it's just time to go to Blue Sky or whatever it's called. I don't know. You can find me at hotoutahoops.com, vendettasportsmedia.com, mountainwestconnection.com, in addition to watchplayback.tv/5RSN, where Adele, myself, and other Heat sickos watch the Miami Heat play. I know they're on like a 5-day break or whatever. It's like the early season all-star break, I guess. I don't know why that this NBA schedule makers decide to do that, but nevertheless, we go there. We watch games no matter how sad, mad, or happy they make us. So yeah, man, I'm everywhere doing a lot of different stuff for a lot of different people, man. Thank you for having me on, as always.
I really appreciate you stopping by and doing this, but the one thing I gotta say is we gotta ask Adam Sandler how he feels about you giving out your Twitter handle.
You blew it!
I guess that's the sentiment from Adam Sandler, folks. You heard it here first on Hoops Profile, the Beyond the Backboard podcast.
I can't deny Adam Sandler. I can't. Listen, man. I get it. I'll be better next time, man. You got to hold me accountable.
That's it, man. The only thing you can do is review the film and learn from it. Come back with a better approach and make sure that next time you absolutely kill your Twitter handle.
I'm going to be playing this clip, 100,000 times between now and next week. Just trying to get it right, trying to make sure I iron out any weaknesses in my game, so we can come back better than ever next time.
Absolutely. Well, I certainly appreciate you. Again, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you next time.